Most people live trapped in a devastating illusion about money and prosperity. This silent but powerful illusion constantly whispers, getting rich is extremely complex, almost impossible for the average person. This belief limits more dreams and traps more potential than any economic crisis ever could. Observe your surroundings. How many people live in a state of constant worry about money? How many believe that only the lucky, privileged, or extraordinarily talented few deserve abundance? The truth that few want to face is that this perceived complexity is the first and most effective barrier to financial transformation. More than a century ago, Wallace D. Wattles proclaimed something revolutionary. There's a science of getting rich, and it is an exact science, like algebra or arithmetic. This statement seems absurdly simplistic to minds trained to see prosperity as an impenetrable maze. But what if the complexity we perceive was just a mental construct? Modern psychology confirms what Wattles intuited. Our brain creates models of reality based not on what is truly possible, but on what we believe is possible. Neuroscience reveals that we constantly filter billions of bits of information, allowing only a tiny fraction to reach our consciousness, precisely the fraction that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. This is the first big secret. Financial complexity is not an objective truth. It is a subjective perception created and sustained by the dominant thoughts we carry. Wattles' true genius was realizing that if perceived complexity is created by thought, then new thought can instantly dissolve it. Think about it. Every great fortune, every financial empire, started as a simple thought in someone's mind. Steve Jobs envisioned computers accessible to everyone at a time when they took up entire rooms. Sarah Blakely imagined a piece of clothing that didn't exist and created a billion-dollar empire called Spanx. Warren Buffett, at age 11, declared that he would be a millionaire at a time when his family was struggling financially. What they all had in common was not extraordinary circumstances, but an extraordinary thought about what was possible. They saw simplicity where others saw complexity. They saw certainty where others saw doubt. The truth is that you don't need hundreds of financial strategies, impressive academic titles, or connections with powerful people to transform your financial reality. What you need is a single powerful thought planted deep in your subconscious that will naturally reorganize your perception and, consequently, your actions regarding money. In the mind of the average person, prosperity is a puzzle with 1,000 pieces. In the mind of the true wealth creator, it is a simple equation. Right thinking plus aligned action equals inevitable manifestation. And it all starts with letting go of the illusion of complexity. When Wallace D. Wattles wrote that thought is the only force that can produce tangible wealth from amorphous substance, he was not offering a poetic metaphor. It was revealing a literal truth about how the universe works. Thinking is not just an abstract activity confined to the interior of the skull. It is a real, measurable, and transformative force that projects outwards, shaping the raw material of the universe. Your brain is the most powerful transmitter on the planet. Moment to moment, you emit energetic patterns based on your dominant thoughts, not occasional, but dominant. These vibrational patterns attract circumstances, people, and opportunities that resonate at the same frequency. This is not an esoteric theory, but a natural extension of quantum physics that demonstrates how matter, in its essence, responds to conscious observation. Think of each thought as a living seed. Some seeds produce abundance, others, scarcity. Some generate opportunities, others, obstacles. Nature does not judge the seed. It simply nurtures it until it produces what is in its genetic code. Likewise, the universe does not judge your thinking about money. It only develops it until its full manifestation. Your current financial life is the garden that grew from the seeds you planted in the past. Take a sincere look at your bank account, your debts, your investments, your income stream. They are not accidents or products of chance. They are perfect manifestations of the thoughts you have consistently held about money over the years. You may think, that's absurd. I didn't consciously choose to have financial difficulties. And you're right, the choice is rarely conscious. The most powerful thoughts are those that operate silently in the subconscious, planted in childhood or unconsciously adopted from the culture around us. Thoughts like money is dirty, rich people are greedy, there isn't enough to go around, it's spiritual to be poor, or people like me don't get rich. Each of these thoughts is a precise instruction for your brain to create a specific vibrational pattern. And your brain, like the perfect servant, obeys without question. It does not discuss whether thinking is limiting or expansive. Simply execute the command and manifest the corresponding reality. The good news: just as a gardener can pull weeds and plant new seeds, you can remove limiting thoughts and replace them with abundance-generating thoughts. But this requires more than superficial statements. It requires a fundamental change in how you perceive the relationship between thought and matter. Wattles insisted, man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance, he can cause the creation of the thing he thought of. This is the basic mechanics of wealth creation, not as hard work, obsessive planning, or luck, but as the natural manifestation of an established mental pattern. Ask yourself, what is the dominant thought you carry about money? When you close your eyes and visualize your relationship with abundance, what image naturally emerges? Is it an image of constant struggle, of uncertainty, of never enough, or is it an image of natural flow, of merit, of absolute trust? The answer to this question reveals more about your financial future than any market analysis ever could. Because thought is not just the precursor of reality, it is its active architect. Inside every person there is a silent civil war about money. On one side are limiting beliefs, those that whisper, "Be careful, there will never be enough. People like you are not born for wealth. To earn more, you will need to sacrifice your health, your family, your integrity." On the other side, expansive beliefs fight, that intuitive voice that knows. Abundance is the natural state of the universe. You were born to prosper. Wealth and virtue can coexist harmoniously. This battle does not take place in the open field, but in the depths of the subconscious. And what makes this war so challenging is that we are rarely aware that it is taking place. Limiting beliefs do not announce their destructive nature. They present themselves as protective, like realism or prudence. They offer the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar is scarcity itself. The real battlefield is not the external financial market, but the internal mind that interprets that market. Two people can face exactly the same economic circumstances and draw radically different conclusions. One will see opportunities where the other sees only obstacles. One will see abundance where the other sees only limitation. The difference is not in objective reality, but in the subjective belief that filters that reality. Consider the story of Thomas, an ordinary man raised in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. From an early age, he imbibed the belief that money is scarce and difficult, that only the lucky ones truly prosper. Like a silent program running in the background, this belief has shaped your decisions for decades. He rejected investment opportunities because people like him didn't do that kind of thing. He avoided negotiating salaries, as he believed he should be grateful for any job. I spent any extra money immediately, because deep down I didn't believe I deserved to keep it. His life was a perfect confirmation of his core belief about money. Not because the belief was true, but because the human brain is meticulous about finding evidence that confirms its pre-existing beliefs. It's what psychologists call confirmation bias. We see what we expect to see, filtering out any contrary evidence. Thomas's transformation began when he identified this fundamental belief. The simple act of bringing into consciousness what previously operated in the shadow has already started a fissure in the ancient belief system. He began to question, what if this belief is not an objective truth, but just a story I was told and accepted without question? This is the first step in mental reprogramming, recognizing that our beliefs about money are just that, beliefs, not facts. They are learned interpretations, not immutable truths. And what has been learned can be unlearned. Thomas began a deliberate process of substitution. Each time the old limiting thought arose, money is scarce and difficult, he consciously replaced it with the new thought, abundance is my natural state, and I attract wealth by who I am, not by what I do. In the early days, this seemed like a lie. His body resisted. His mind argued. His emotions protested. His entire identity rebelled against this new assertion that defied years of conditioning. It is at this point that many give up, interpreting the discomfort as evidence that the new thinking is false. But discomfort is not indicative of falsehood. It is the natural result of cognitive dissonance, the friction between the new and the old. The key is to persist through this phase of resistance, understanding that the subconscious mind accepts as truth what it repeatedly receives, not through logical argumentation, but through emotional persistence filled with conviction. As Thomas held on to the new thinking, even against all external evidence, something began to change. First internally, a new sense of possibility, an openness where before there was only resignation. Then, gradually, in the external world, small synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, new ideas for generating income. This is the fundamental dynamic of the internal battle. The old will fight to survive, but the new, consistently nurtured with emotional attention and conviction, will eventually prevail. Not because it is truer in some absolute sense, but because it is the thought you have consciously chosen to cultivate. When Wallace D. Wattles wrote about the amorphous substance that responds to thought, he was intuiting, decades earlier, what quantum physics would later confirm: matter, at its most fundamental level, is not solid and unchanging, but a vibrational dance of possibilities that respond to the consciousness of the observer. The double-slit experiment, a cornerstone of quantum physics, demonstrated something extraordinary. Subatomic particles behave like waves of possibility until they are observed, at which point they collapse into a specific reality. In other words, mere observation alters the behavior of matter at its most fundamental level. Consciousness is not just a passive witness to reality, it is an active participant in its creation. This is not Eastern mysticism repackaged as Western science. These are the conclusions of Nobel laureate physicists such as Max Planck, who declared, "Matter as such does not exist. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. We must assume that behind this force there is a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter." What does this mean for your prosperity? It means that your financial reality is not a solid, immutable structure existing independently of you. It is a field of possibilities that collapses into specific experiences, based on the thought patterns you consistently hold. When Wattles claimed that thinking a certain way was the secret to wealth, he was articulating, in the language of his time, the same principle that quantum physics now corroborates: consciousness precedes matter. Thought precedes physical manifestation. Modern neuroscience adds another layer to this: understanding. Through advanced brain imaging techniques, scientists have discovered that repeated thoughts literally create new neural networks. When you repeatedly think about scarcity, your brain builds neural highways that facilitate more scarcity thoughts. When you deliberately cultivate thoughts of abundance, new neural connections begin to form. This process, called neuroplasticity, explains why simply thinking positive occasionally doesn't produce lasting change. It takes consistent practice to reconfigure dominant neural networks. It takes insistence that the new thought is not just an occasional visitor, but the permanent resident in your mind. Positive psychology pioneers such as Martin Seligman and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi have demonstrated through rigorous studies that positive mental states are not just the results of favorable circumstances. They are precursors that create the conditions for success. People who cultivate grounded optimism not only feel better, they literally see opportunities that pessimists can't see, even when they're in the same room. The transformative thinking we are exploring: abundance is my natural state, and I attract wealth by who I am, not by what I do, is not a magical statement. It is a conscious redefinition of your quantum field of financial possibilities. It is a clear instruction for your nervous system to reorganize your perceptions, decisions, and actions related to money. The true power of this thought does not come from some mythical quality in the words. It comes from aligning these words with the fundamental laws that govern our universe, laws that operate regardless of our belief or disbelief in them. Just as the law of gravity does not require our approval to function. When you truly embody this thought, you are not just adopting a new philosophy of life. It is literally rewiring your brain to recognize and act in harmony with the quantum principle of conscious manifestation. You are tuning your internal transmitter to the frequency of abundance, naturally attracting experiences, people, and opportunities that vibrate at the same frequency. This is not a mysterious or supernatural process. It's as natural and scientific as planting a seed and watching it grow. The seed does not struggle to become a tree. It simply expresses what is already encoded in its DNA, provided it is given the right environment to flourish. Likewise, you don't need to struggle to manifest prosperity. You just need to cultivate the internal mental environment that allows your abundant nature to flourish naturally. We get to the heart of this exploration, the thought that has the power to completely redesign your financial reality. Abundance is my natural state, and I attract wealth by who I am, not by what I do. This is not a common phrase. It's an activation code for an entirely new paradigm about prosperity. Let's dissect it to understand its transformative power. Abundance is my natural state. This first part directly challenges the prevailing belief that scarcity is the normal condition of life. Look at the universe around you. Is there a shortage of atoms, of air molecules, solar energy? Nature itself operates on a principle of overabundance. Trees produce thousands of seeds when only a few are needed for reproduction. Galaxies contain billions of stars. Human DNA contains enough information to fill 1,000 books of 1,000 pages each. By declaring abundance as your natural state, you are not creating a fantasy reality. It is simply realigning your perception with the fundamental truth of the cosmos. It is recognizing that scarcity is a distortion, not the rule. It is a return to your true nature, not an escape from it. And I attract wealth by who I am, not by what I do. This second part is revolutionary because it completely reverses the conventional equation of financial success. The traditional model says, do more to have more to ultimately be more. This transformative thought says, be more in awareness to naturally attract more, which then inspires doing the right things effortlessly. Note the word attract, not pursue, conquer, or gain. Attraction implies natural magnetism, not force. When you become internally aligned with the vibration of abundance, you don't need to desperately chase opportunities. They begin to be attracted to you by natural resonance. And the distinction between who I am and what I do is crucial. Most people are stuck in an exhausting cycle of doing without ever addressing the deeper level of being. They work more, study more, try harder, without realizing that all this external activity springs from an internal identity. When you change at the level of being, your fundamental self-image, your core values, your perceived relationship to abundance, doing flows naturally from this new source. The same actions, when performed from an internal state of abundance, produce radically different results than when performed from a state of scarcity. Maria, an entrepreneur, spent years trying to make her business prosper through hard work, aggressive marketing, and sales strategies. Despite all his efforts, he was constantly struggling, always on the edge of financial survival. The problem was not in his strategies, but in the energy from which he acted, an energy of despair, fear, and scarcity. When she finally internalized the transformative thought, something changed. Not your external actions, initially, but your internal state. She began operating from a genuine feeling of abundance, even before she saw changes in her bank account. His interactions with potential customers were no longer charged with the energy of desperate need, but with the energy of generous offer. The same clients who were previously hesitant were now naturally drawn to working with her. The same proposals that were previously received with indifference now aroused enthusiasm. What changed was not the external world, but the energetic field she emanated, based on her new dominant thought. This transformative thinking is not a technique to be used occasionally. It's a new perceptual lens through which you experience your entire financial reality. It's a statement of identity, not about what you want to have, but about who you know you are. The proof of this is how you feel when you say, abundance is my natural state, and I attract wealth by who I am, not by what I do. If it seems like a lie, as it does for many at first, it is because there is still a discrepancy between your current vibrational pattern and the truth of this thought. Discomfort is not evidence that the thought is false. It's a sign that you're challenging deep-rooted limiting beliefs. When truly embodied, this thought becomes more than an affirmation, it becomes your lived reality. You don't need to repeat it constantly because it becomes the automatic filter through which you interpret and respond to all money-related situations. It's your new financial identity, and like any change of identity, it requires more than intellectual agreement. It requires embodiment, complete incorporation on the mental, emotional, and physical levels. For the transformative thought, abundance is my natural state, and I attract wealth by who I am. Not what I do to truly redesign your financial reality. It needs to be embodied on 3 distinct levels, creating a complete harmony that leaves no room for internal contradictions. This triple integration, mental, emotional, and physical, transforms a simple affirmation into a lived truth. At the mental level, we begin with the conscious reprogramming of thought patterns. The rational mind, to accept any new concept, needs consistent repetition and evidence to support the new belief. A powerful practice is detailed creative visualization, where you not only repeat the transformative thought, but create vivid mental scenes that represent its manifestation. During these visualization exercises, it is essential to include all the senses. What would your life be like if this thought were completely true? How would you move through the world? How would you interact with other people? What conversations would you have? What decisions would you make? The more detailed and sensorial your visualization, the faster the subconscious accepts the new program. Another crucial strategy at the mental level is the conscious interruption of negative self-talk. When you notice thoughts of scarcity arising, I can't afford this. I will always struggle financially. People like me don't get rich. Stop them immediately and replace them with transformative thinking. This mental vigilance, although challenging at first, gradually reprograms automatic neural patterns on an emotional level. We face perhaps the most critical and often overlooked aspect of transformation. It is not enough to repeat the thought intellectually. You need to feel His truth in every cell of your body. Emotion is the language of the subconscious, and it is the ingredient that converts a simple idea into a deep-rooted belief. One transformative practice is what I call advanced gratitude. Unlike conventional gratitude for things you already have, this practice involves feeling genuine gratitude for abundance that has not yet manifested itself physically, but that you recognize as already yours on the energetic plane. It's being grateful for the unexpected check before it arrives, for the lucrative opportunity before it appears, for the growing prosperity that you know is on the way. The key to this practice is emotional authenticity. Your body knows when you're faking it. Advanced gratitude only works when you can access the genuine feeling of having already received. This is the secret that Wattles described when he said, "Think and act in a certain way." Thought without corresponding feeling is just an empty statement. Another powerful emotional practice is identifying and releasing the negative emotions associated with money, fear, guilt, shame, anger, resentment. These dense emotions create energetic blockages that impede the natural flow of abundance. Practices such as emotional freedom technique EFT, focused meditation, and deep journaling can help dissolve these blocks on the physical level. Transformative thinking must manifest itself in concrete actions that demonstrate your new relationship with abundance. This is the ultimate test of congruence. Are your external behaviors aligned with your new internal paradigm? A powerful physical action is the act of giving. It may seem counterintuitive, but giving from a sense of abundance, not sacrifice, is one of the most powerful ways to demonstrate to the universe and your own subconscious that you operate from enough and have enough mentality. This giving can be monetary, but it can also be time, attention, knowledge, or any other resource you value. Another essential physical manifestation is changing how you talk about money. Your words are physical expressions of your thoughts. Eliminate phrases like "I can't afford it" and replace it with "I'm choosing to invest my money in other ways now." Eliminate complaints about the economy, prices, or lack of opportunities. Every word you utter is an instruction to your subconscious and a statement to the quantum field about what you hope to experience. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of physical embodiment is what I call acting as if. It's behaving today like the financially prosperous person you are becoming. Not in reckless spending or false ostentation, but in posture and careful choices. In the way you dress, how you take care of your current belongings, how you make decisions. True integration occurs when these three levels, mental, emotional, and physical, are perfectly aligned. When you think about abundance, you feel abundance and act from abundance simultaneously, without internal contradiction. In this state of total congruence, transformation is not only possible, it is inevitable. Like Carlos, a university professor who lived on a limited salary for decades, he didn't just repeat transformative mental thinking. He cultivated a daily feeling of gratitude for increasing emotional abundance even when his bank account showed no change. And he began giving 10% of his income to causes he admired and treating every purchase with respect and consideration, like someone who deeply values his physical wealth. Within 6 months, unexpected opportunities arose, invitations to paid speaking engagements, an offer to co-author a book, and a consulting project that doubled his income. The external world responded to your transformed internal vibration not as a miracle, but as a natural manifestation of the law of attraction. The journey of financial transformation through thinking abundance is my natural state, and I attract wealth by who I am, not by what I do, is rarely a straight line. It's a path with moments of crystal clarity interspersed with periods of deep doubt, unexpected tests, and what appears to be direct evidence contradicting your new paradigm. These challenges are not flaws in the process. They are an integral part of transmutation. These are the moments when the old belief system fights with all its might to survive, like a malicious computer program that activates its best defensive resources when it detects that it is being removed. The first and perhaps most universal challenge is what I call contradictory evidence. You start to incorporate the new thinking and suddenly, your bank account hits a new low. An important client cancels. An investment fails. The car breaks down requiring an expensive repair. Your subconscious, desperately seeking to validate the old paradigm of scarcity, will interpret these events as proof that the new thinking is a dangerous fantasy. The strategy to overcome this challenge is not to deny the reality of these events. It's about reinterpreting its meaning. Instead of seeing them as evidence that abundance is not your natural state, recognize them as the final cleansing of the old energetic pattern. Like a fever that precedes healing, like the deepest darkness before dawn. This reinterpretation is not self-deception. It is understanding that external events have no inherent meaning, only the meaning we attribute to them. And in this critical transition phase, it is essential to attribute meanings that strengthen the new paradigm, rather than validating the old one. The second major challenge is what Wattles called arguments from external appearances. The visible, material world seems to scream that scarcity is real, that struggle is inevitable, that competition is the law of the land. The economic news, the dinner table conversations, the visible examples of financial failure, all seem to support the old paradigm. The strategy for this challenge is simple but profound. Drastically limit your exposure to these influences during the transition period. Be extremely selective about what you allow into your energy field. Reduce negative financial news. Stay away from people who are constantly focused on scarcity. Intentionally surround yourself with examples and stories that reinforce abundance as a natural state. This is not toxic isolation or denial of reality. It is strategic attention management. It is recognizing that in the reprogramming phase, your subconscious is especially susceptible to external influences, and you must protect it as you would protect a newly planted seed from extreme weather conditions. The third big challenge is what psychologists call elasticity, the natural tendency to return to familiar patterns even after periods of positive change. You may experience days or weeks of clarity, confidence, and evidence of your new paradigm in action, only to wake up one morning immersed in old doubts, old fears, old patterns. The strategy here is to anticipate and normalize this elasticity. Don't interpret it as failure or proof that the transformation isn't working. Recognize it as an inevitable part of the neural reorganization process. Our brain forms new neural pathways gradually, and old ones don't disappear instantly. They weaken with time and disuse. but can be momentarily reactivated, especially during periods of stress or fatigue. When these moments occur, not if, but when, the response is not self-criticism or despair, it's gentle redirection. How to teach a child, not with harsh judgment, but with consistent patience, lovingly repeating the lesson as many times as necessary. A fourth challenge is what we call integrity testing. As your vibrational frequency rises, situations will arise testing whether you truly live the values of the new paradigm. You may receive an unexpected sum of money and feel the urge to hide it, or an opportunity that seems profitable but requires compromising important values, or the temptation to manipulate others for financial gain. These are not obstacles, they are opportunities for integration. Each time you choose to act with integrity, even when it seems to cost you materially, you reinforce the new paradigm on a deep level. You demonstrate to the universe and your subconscious, I truly believe in abundance as my natural state, so I don't need to compromise who I am for temporary gains. Finally, many will face the challenge of impatience. Transformation rarely happens overnight. There is an incubation period where you are vibrating at the new frequency, but the physical manifestations are not yet completely visible. Like a farmer who planted seeds and watered daily, but still doesn't see sprouts emerging from the ground. The strategy for impatience is to understand the mechanics of manifestation. There's always a gap between vibrational change and complete physical manifestation. Not because the universe is slow, but because multiple elements need to reorganize themselves on the material plane to reflect their new vibration. People need to be inspired to seek you out. Opportunities need to align. Synchronicities need to form. During this incubation period, the most powerful practice is what I call anticipatory celebration, honoring and appreciating the invisible process that is already underway, even before you see the tangible results. It's trusting the process with the same certainty that you have that a seed planted in fertile soil will eventually germinate. We have reached the end of this journey of exploring the unique and transformative thought. Abundance is my natural state, and I attract wealth by who I am, not by what I do. What began as a simple phrase turned out to be a portal to an entirely new reality, a reality where prosperity is not a distant result of strenuous effort, but the natural expression of who you truly are. We redesigned the mental map of prosperity, recognizing that financial complexity is an illusion. That thought is a literal creative force, that internal beliefs determine external experiences, and that quantum physics confirms what mystics have always known: consciousness precedes matter. You now understand that this transformative thought needs to be embodied on all three levels: mental, emotional, and physical, to create the total congruence that results in manifestation. And be prepared for the inevitable challenges of the transition period, armed with specific strategies to navigate the tests, doubts, and apparent setbacks. The invitation now is for a practical commitment, a 30-day experiment with this transformative thinking. Over the next 30 days, make this thought the lens through which you interpret all financial experiences. Each morning, before you face the world, take 5 minutes to vividly visualize what your life would be like if this thought were completely true. Feel the emotions of this new reality. Allow your body to experience what it feels like to be someone for whom abundance is the natural state. Throughout the day, when faced with financial decisions, big or small, ask yourself, how would someone who truly believes abundance is their natural state act? And then, act like it, not in pretension, but as a sincere expression of your new emerging identity. Each night, before bed, record in a journal evidence, however small, that this thought is manifesting itself in your life. Maybe it's a small synchronicity, an unexpected profitable idea, a generous gesture you made naturally, a financial decision made out of abundance rather than scarcity. This daily log not only documents your journey, but trains your brain to recognize confirming rather than contradictory evidence. If you do this simple experiment sincerely and consistently, at the end of 30 days something profound will have changed. Perhaps not all of your external financial reality, although tangible changes will certainly begin to appear, but definitely your internal reality. And it is this internal change That inevitably precedes every external manifestation. Remember, you are not trying to manipulate the universe to get what you want. You are realigning your vibration with the fundamental truth of who you truly are, a being naturally destined for abundance, intrinsically connected to the infinite source of all prosperity. The only thought you need to transform your financial life is not a technique or mental trick. It is a profound recognition of the truth underlying all existence, the truth that Wallace D. Wattles, spiritual teachers through the centuries, and now quantum physics itself invite us to recognize we are creative beings, not creatures of circumstance. The power is, and always has been, within you, not somewhere far away to be reached, but at your core, waiting to be recognized, embraced, and expressed. Transformative thinking is simply the key that unlocks this innate power. Take the 30-day challenge. Witness for yourself the transmutation that occurs when you finally free your mind from the limitations of perceived scarcity and return to your natural state of infinite creative abundance. Your new financial reality awaits you, not in some distant future, but here and now, the moment you finally accept the truth about who you really are.